Welcome to the Payday with Rayray podcast, hosted by yours truly, Rachel Bell. I'm here to make your life easier as an entrepreneur and teach you everything I've learned about building multiple seven-figure online businesses. And on this podcast, I'll be giving you my best advice, trainings, and mindset shifts so you can grow your business and, most importantly, make every day your payday. Hey, happy Friday, Payday babies. How are you guys doing out there? You doing good? Cool. All right, so today's episode is all about imposter syndrome. Dun, dun, dun. If you do not know what imposter syndrome is, are you even a human being? Serious question. But just to put definition terms around it, imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, imposterism, fraud phenomenon, or the imposter experience, is a psychological pattern in which one doubts one's accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud or not good enough or not educated enough or not capable enough. Basically, you just spend most of your day wondering and thinking, am I even able to do this? Can I take on the responsibility of people trusting me? Because my perceived ability to do everything is somewhat lower than what others may perceive my ability to be. And this is something that comes up so frequently with my students, with my community, with really anyone that I talk to, even high level entrepreneurs, executives, CEOs, world leaders, thought leaders, like everyone struggles with imposter syndrome. And this is not something that is only existing in your head. No matter what your experience level is, no matter what your confidence is in yourself, there's always going to be some situations where you walk into a room and you wonder to yourself, do I deserve to be here? And this often comes up for us when we start marketing and when we consider putting our offer out there into the world. Maybe it's a new offer, maybe it's an old offer, maybe it's an offer that you're just really excited about, but you have this lingering fear in the back of your head, like, what if you let someone down? What if you disappoint someone? And this can be a very, very torturing experience if you're going through it alone and you don't have anyone in your corner telling you that, yes, you can do it. And oftentimes our experience is that of the polar opposite. We have maybe family members, community members, friends, or other people out there on the interwebs telling us through direct or indirect messaging that we are not ready or capable or qualified enough to do what we want to be doing. And when it comes to the coaching industry, especially, this comes up a lot because our number one goal in the coaching industry is to help people and to serve people and to help them elevate themselves and their lives into higher states of being, well-being, financial freedom, abundance, whatever it is for you, whatever you help people achieve. You have this mission to serve them and to help them. And you know what gets in the way of that is not thinking that you're capable of helping them, right? You could probably see how that would be a really big problem in your career. But all jokes aside, and just to be completely real with you guys, this is something that everyone, no matter how experienced you are, deals with. Now, some common symptoms of imposter syndrome include feeling a lot of guilt, like you're charging too much, or guilty around even choosing coaching as a career. Like you might think to yourself, oh, who am I to do this? Or who am I to claim my space out there in the interwebs saying that I can do XYZ when I've only done it for myself, or I've only done it for a couple other people, or maybe I've done it for hundreds or thousands of people, but you still have that lingering fear and that guilt. Another symptom of imposter syndrome is shame. You feel shame around charging your worth. You feel shame around putting out content that clearly states your opinion on things because you're worried about that one motherfucker who's going to say, you're wrong. It's actually this. And you don't want to be called out. And you have this fear and this shame around stating your truth and being yourself. Because ultimately we're all afraid, and this is another symptom of imposter syndrome, we're afraid of rejection and we're afraid of disappointing other people, especially if you are kind of a people pleaser. If you have kind of a past of being a people pleaser in life, you probably experience this quite often, like the fear of rejection. Like if I say this and this person might not agree with me, or they might disagree with me, or they might call me out, or they might talk shit about me, whatever that is, they won't accept me. And then ultimately, another big symptom of imposter syndrome is fear of responsibility. You actually kind of fear at a low level that other people would trust you. And the fear of responsibility ultimately stems from the fact that we, at some level, are so deathly afraid of letting someone down and disappointing others. And if you trace this back to maybe the first time you experienced disappointing other people, it was likely in your childhood. Perhaps you did a small task, or you did a small favor, or you were asked to take the meat out of the freezer when your mom got home and then you forgot to do it and you let her down, and then boom, childhood trauma. It could be something small like that before we had the logic and the reasoning skills to be able to forgive ourselves. It could be something much larger, like maybe you had, an experience where someone did trust you a lot, and then you, by being human, kind of let them down. And we all have experiences like this, but the difference between people who are able to overcome imposter syndrome and people who are not able to overcome imposter syndrome is your ability to forgive yourself and believe that you do deserve success, even though you're human and even though you might and you will make mistakes. So, imposter syndrome. Yes, I want to share my personal story with this phenomenon because it is kind of embarrassing to admit, I think, as experts and as authority figures online, especially if you're putting yourself out there as someone who does have all the answers for your ideal client avatar. It's embarrassing to admit that sometimes you doubt yourself. And for me, coming into this podcast episode, I wanted to be very real with you guys about my experience with this thing and show you kind of the cockblockers and the distractions that I personally indulged in when I was avoiding my calling of stepping up and saying, yo, I can help people and I want to help people. And how this all began was it's funny because a lot of times when we first start out with something, we're super passionate about it and we want to share all about it. Like, let's say that you start this new vegan diet and all of a sudden you're like posting vegan food on Instagram and you're saving the animals and you're doing all these things and you're like, everyone should be vegan, and you're sharing all this information with the world and you have no shame in your game around sharing what you think would be helpful for other people. Or let's say that you started a new sport like CrossFit, or you're going to the gym and you share it and you're so excited and you're like, everyone should do this. I want to help as many people as possible by sharing this stuff. And that's all fine and that's all good until we look at this as a career. And then we start psyching ourselves out and being like, oh shit, if I'm going to put a price tag on this stuff, I need to make sure that I'm absolutely 100% perfect. So in my journey, I had a lot of different passions pop up here and there, and I wanted to share about all of them. But when it started to get weird was when I started to charge for these passions and these gifts that I had, like graphic design, for example. When I was 12 years old, all I wanted for Christmas was a graphic design tablet, one that I could use as like a drawing pad, and I wanted Photoshop. That was like literally on my Christmas list for like 3 years. I was like, I just want Photoshop. I just want Photoshop so I can make digital art. I was big into art and painting and drawing. I would spend hours per day just drawing and doodling and fill notebooks full of art. And I really wanted the ability to be able to use digital tools to do that. And so I got super passionate about graphic design, and I would just make drawings and paintings on Photoshop and on my tablet for anyone in my life. I would make them for people that I knew, like my cousins or my family, my friends, things like that. And then when I got older and I was like 18 years old, I remember I got my first opportunity to create a logo. And the person was like, well, how much are your logos? And I just remember being like, oh my God, the first thing that came up in my mind was, what if they don't like it though? It wasn't like, what are my gifts worth? What is my experience really, really worth here? I was instead just fixated on, what if they don't like it? What if I put all my heart and soul into this thing and they still aren't impressed? And that was the biggest fear in my entire life. I wouldn't want to let anyone down. I wouldn't want to produce anything that was anything less than perfect. And I was so stressed out by the idea that I could create something and they wouldn't be happy for it. And I would take, energy from them in the form of currency and they wouldn't be happy with it. So I was like, it's free. And they were like, luckily this person was an adult and they were like, no, I don't think it's free. Like, what do you charge for logos? Do you charge like $200, $300? And I was initially just thinking of charging like $20. So I was like 17 or 18 years old at that time. Like, $100. Jesus. Yeah, like I could do it for $100. just lowballing it as much as I could. And they said, okay, great. When do you think it'll be done? Like 2 or 3 weeks? And I was thinking, I'll do it tonight. And I was like, well, probably 3 days. And so it was just so interesting. Through that first conversation, I became so aware of other people's perception and other people's opinion on what my value was and how long it would take me to create something, and what my own perception was on my value and my ability to create something. So it was a total mismatch in a positive way for me. And you'll always find mismatches no matter where you go. You could offer something that is the bee's knees. It's your life's work. It is your baby. It's everything that you poured yourself into. It's your heart, your soul, your just everything into one creation. And you could say, oh, this is worth $2,000. And you'll experience conversations where someone's like, oh my God, you should be charging $10,000 for this. And then you'll have other experiences where someone's like, no, I could never spend $2,000 on that thing. And what you have to realize more than anything else is that imposter syndrome it occurs in all of our lives because everything is subjective. There is no one truth on what is valuable and what is not valuable. You can easily see this by looking at a designer item like a purse from Chanel or something that might be $6,000, and a purse from Target, which might be like $15. And they serve the same exact purpose, but the price tag is significantly different. And guess what? Both of those purses are going to be purchased by people. They're not going to be the same type of person, but they will both be purchased. And this is why imposter syndrome is such a epidemic in the coaching industry, because nobody knows what the real value is. It's up to you. You have to know yourself more than anyone else and trust that your ideal client avatars are going to see the value in what you offer, and they're going to find the value in what you offer. And you have to be really, really strong and steadfast in that. So anyway, that was my first experience with feeling imposter syndrome. And luckily, my experience was positive, where someone viewed my, abilities as a little bit more valuable than I viewed them as. But I experienced the opposite end of the spectrum as well. There have been people who have said, oh, I would never pay that much for what you're offering. And I had to be like, oh shit, God, am I offering too much? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I doing something wrong? And ultimately, what I've learned through doing business for years now and offering OCA for just about 2 years right now, it just depends on the type of person who is investing. But let me talk deeper into imposter syndrome and how it manifests as. Oftentimes, when you are dealing with imposter syndrome at a low level or at a high level, you will indulge in the following activities. Number 1, you will refuse to offer your services or your products for anything more than either free or very, very low, cheap prices. Another manifestation of imposter syndrome is that you never make an offer. You never put yourself out there and say, yo, I can help you. Here's how I help you. And here's who I help. And here's who I don't help. Let's get started. Another manifestation of imposter syndrome is that you don't have any boundaries with your existing clients or potential clients. And you're just like up late night answering all their questions and being there for them and kind of hovering over them like a helicopter mom, wanting to make sure that they're super, super happy with you, not from a place of wanting to love and give and serve, but from a place of being afraid that one day they're not going to be happy with you. It's coming from a place of fear. Another manifestation is people pleasing. So if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, a lot of times there's an undertone of people pleasing in there, where you don't want to make a mistake in the fear that someone's going to think less of you. And then another manifestation, which is really interesting, and it seems productive, but it's actually anti-productive, is endless education or information addiction. This is when you get addicted to just researching and learning and learning and learning, and you're in a learning cycle, but you never actually take action to offer this or to put it to the test and give it to other people. Instead, you just accumulate all these certifications, you accumulate all these books, you accumulate all this stuff that you never really do anything with. You just feel like you need it in order to feel more ready to help people. And don't get me wrong, being educated, being informed, and being experienced is extremely important. But unfortunately, a lot of coaches who are dealing with imposter syndrome never get to the point where they're able to let themselves become experienced. Instead, they just focus on education and informant, and they never actually dive into experiential learning opportunities where they can actually serve a client with what they know. So this manifests as a lot of inaction and a lot of paralysis, because you can feel so stuck in this place of really, really wanting to help someone with all of your heart, but not having the bravery to put yourself out there and say, yo, I can help. And this is such a killer, because what I find is that the most qualified people in this world in what they do have imposter syndrome, because the more you know and the more you learn about something, the more you realize you don't know everything. And this is a natural kind of humility radar that goes off. When you start learning about something, you're like, I am so educated. Like, I just started this diet and I'm such an advocate because I feel amazing. And it's week 2 of this diet and I want to share it with everyone. And you're trying to get your parents on board and your cousins on board and everyone's on board. And then you read like 12 other diet books and you realize, oh shit, like everyone has something pretty valid to share here. And you realize that your perspective of, just naively going into something and being an advocate for it might have not been the right decision. And so no matter what field of work you're in, the more you know, the more you think you don't know. And this happens to absolutely everyone who has a certain sense of humility in them. What this creates is a story that is perpetuating itself. Your story that you tell yourself is, I don't know enough. And then you go looking for more information and more education, which validates your story that you don't know enough. Because guess what? Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what they are doing. Some people are more experienced. Some people do have more perspective and more education. But the reality is, on Earth, human beings do not know what they are doing. So another way that you will get stuck in imposter syndrome is if you are constantly comparing yourself to other people who seem like they know what they're doing. Maybe you look up to this Instagram guru who knows so much about lymphatic drainage and you don't know enough about lymphatic drainage because you just got started and you've only watched 2 YouTube videos about it. And it can get so crazy what we compare ourselves to. Okay, so now that we know what imposter syndrome is, let's talk about how to actually overcome it and how we can understand it within ourselves. Because yes, we can understand what this is. And if you're resonating with this podcast episode at all, you already know that this is a huge issue in your career and you can't keep it around if you want to become successful. So imposter syndrome at its core is simply a part of us. It is not who you are. And sometimes we make the mistake of identifying with our feelings like, oh, I am sad, I am anxious, I am this, I am that. But the truth is, imposter syndrome, just like anything else, is simply a part of us. And every single part of us has certain needs. For example, I know that when I feel insecurity or when I feel anxiousness, it's really a part of me that feels insecure or feels anxious. And so that part of me has certain needs that need to be met, and it needs to be heard. And it needs to be acknowledged in order for it to pass through and become something that I can learn from. So this is a little bit more advanced, but I like to ask myself, okay, if I'm feeling imposter syndrome, what does this part of me need? Honestly, what is it seeking? What is the need here in order for it to feel like it's going to be able to go away? And the need that often comes up for me is, well, I need the need to be validated in my experience, the need to be seen as someone who knows the answers. And it's really just a need for significance and validation. And you might be having that same need, or it might be a need for security, that what you're going to teach someone is going to love or someone is going to find and deem helpful. And so this keeps us in a box where we're only sharing things that we believe other people will approve of, and we're not actually sharing the shit that we want to say. And so we're trapped in this fucking box and it drives us fucking crazy. So enough of that. But the key here is to realize that imposter syndrome is just a part of you. And I highly recommend that you sit in meditation or journaling or whatever you need to do to get still and calm and ask yourself, what does this part of me really need? What is its need? What does it feel like it needs in order to be calmed and distant? And then realize that your responsibility is to give that need to yourself. If you're seeking validation, you need to give validation to yourself. If you're seeking approval, you need to give that approval to yourself. Because if you spend your whole entire life looking externally for those things that you need, you will always always be seeking, and you'll never feel fulfilled, and you'll never make the move to live the life that you truly want to live. Now, let's talk about some pros of imposter syndrome, because it's not all bad. I think that we demonize it sometimes and we're like, oh man, like imposter syndrome is just the worst and I want to get rid of it. I don't want to feel like this anymore. But I will be honest with you guys, there are some gifts within this part of you that you do need to acknowledge and you do need to appreciate in order to fully integrate it. So the positive parts of having imposter syndrome are, number one, humility. I can't even tell you guys how important it is to be humble and to understand that, yeah, you don't know everything about about life and about business and about your career and about the future and about anything. We are not in control. We're just in charge. And having that level of humility and down-to-earthness and groundedness that there's still so much more to learn is important. And what I would encourage you guys to step into is excitement about how much you have to learn, not intimidation. Just understand that it takes forever to become a master of your craft, but as long as you stay focused and you keep your core intention to love your clients beyond anyone else in the industry and to serve them with the best information you know how to, that is your one and only job. And no, you'll never be perfect. No, you'll never be the best. No, you'll never be as good as XYZ. But you're going to be you, and your only job here on earth is to be the best you that you can be. So the humility that imposter syndrome reminds us to have is important, and we want to hang on to that part. Another, good part of having and experiencing some imposter syndrome is the reality that you're realizing how much you care about your clients and you care about them having an amazing experience with you. It makes you more qualified than 99% of other coaches out there just because you care for them. Let me say that again. It makes you more qualified than 99% of coaches out there because you care for their results and you care what they think about your program or about your offering and about your service. Trust me when I say that caring about your clients is not something that anyone can ever pay for. You can never pay someone to truly, authentically care for you from the bottom of their heart. It's just intrinsic. And if you have this part of you that truly cares about your clients so much that you just don't want to make a wrong move and so much that you would honestly do what you do for free, you want to hang on to that part. And just learn how to charge what you're worth and believe in your damn self so that you can make this a full-time career and actually serve people on a much higher level than you currently are. But I want you to know that caring for your clients is something you absolutely want to keep at the forefront of your mind, and always ask yourself, what's best for the client? Not what's most convenient for me as a business owner, but what is best for the client? And that's a big part that I love to remind myself. Anytime imposter syndrome comes up, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great signal that I truly care about doing a good job. I want to hang on to that part and just release all the fear and the guilt and the fears, essentially, of rejection or responsibility or disappointment. Let those melt away and just hang on to the fact that you care so deeply. And that is a place where you can step into love, not fear. And then another great part of imposter syndrome is this. One of my teammates said this to me the other day, and I was like, this is so good. I'm going to include it in my podcast. Guess who doesn't have imposter syndrome? There's only one type of person who doesn't have imposter syndrome on this earth, and it's actual imposters. So if you're feeling like an imposter, great news. You're probably not one, because the only people on earth who do not experience imposter syndrome is actual imposters. Write that down, girl or guy, whoever's listening. Write it down, because it is so true. Now, when it comes to creating a little bit of clarity on how to move forward and how to actually tell, because honestly, if you have imposter syndrome, it brings up a really, really good question around, am I actually ready to serve clients? Am I actually ready to receive payment? Am I ready to launch? Am I ready to become a coach? And if you're wondering if this is something that you should be doing, or if you do need more experience or education, I want to invite you to go through a little thought exercise with me about gaining intuitive clarity around whether or not imposter syndrome is something you should listen closely to, or whether it's something you are now ready to move through. So to gain clarity on this whole thing, let me ask you a couple of questions. Number one, when I'm feeling imposter syndrome, or when my students inside of OCA are feeling imposter syndrome, I like to ask them this. If you had a client who came up to you and they were like, I'm ready to sign up, and they were willing to pay you $10,000 to find a solution in your field of work, let me ask you this. Could you map out a clear plan for them to achieve results? And would you feel confident in your ability that if they really trusted you that much and they were the only person you were focused on and you can invest all of your time and energy into them, would you be able to help them find results? If you put yourself on the line and they totally matched you with your energy and your involvement, and they did everything that you said, and they were willing to ask questions and get feedback and rework the solutions if need be, would you trust your ability to map out a plan, execute it, and help them find some results? If the answer is yes to that question, then you are totally ready. But you need more evidence to back up your abilities. It's a different story to have abilities and then to have confidence in your abilities. And sometimes we have all the abilities, we have all of the expertise, we have all of the knowledge and the implementation skills that we need, but we don't have enough evidence that we actually are good at what we do. So because of that, we still view ourselves as a beginner or a novice or someone who's not ready or able to take payment. But the reality is, if you feel confident in your ability to map out a plan and get someone results, if they matched your energy output, then you're ready. You just need more evidence, which means you need to put yourself out there, and we'll get into how you can do that in just a second. But if the answer is no to that question, and you're like, honestly, if someone, even if they paid me and they were the only person I was talking to and they were the only person I was focused on, I don't think that I would feel confident. I don't think that I would know what to tell them how to do in order to get results. Then that's okay. You're starting at square one, and what you need is experience and evidence. So in category one, if the answer is yes to that question, you have all the experience, all you need is the evidence. But if you are in category two and you say, no, I wouldn't know what to do, then you need experience and evidence, which means that you need to start from square one, either achieve these results yourself and then use yourself as a case study to provide other people with results, or work with people for free for a little bit, work with people for a low price. There's a time and a place for that. I've done it in the past and other people have done it in the past, and that's a great way to start. It's actually fair to the client. If you honestly don't know what you're doing, then maybe you shouldn't be charging $10,000 for it. But I think that there's a place to start, not a place to stay. So I would recommend that you focus on gaining experience and gaining evidence. Now, there are a couple cockblockers that will prevent you from taking action and providing this evidence for yourself. One of them is low prices. So if you're in category one and you said, yes, I would know what to do with that client, all I need is a client to say yes to me, then low prices will be actually a huge issue for you moving forward and getting your clients results. If you stay at low prices, even after you know that your methodology works and you know what you're doing and you know how to provide results for your clients, then chances are you might attract some lower quality clients who are not willing to put skin in the game. They end up ghosting you. They end up just falling off of their program, not being consistent, not taking it seriously because they don't have enough skin in the game. They didn't invest enough energy in the upfront to really take this seriously. And this is a very, very common issue among health and fitness coaches, especially because they'll sell a 90-day program for $200 or $300 or something like that. And the clients will take it seriously week 1, 2, 3, and then week 4, the coach never hears from them. And then week 5, they never hear from them. And then before you know it, that client has completely gone MIA because they forgot about their investment and they're not taking it seriously anymore because they don't have skin in the game. This is not the case with all clients, but it is extremely common in most clients who don't invest in something that they truly believe is worth it. Instead, they play small and they're constantly hunting other cheaper or faster solutions. And this can keep you stuck in not getting your clients results and therefore not creating evidence that you know what you're doing as a coach because nobody's stepping up to the plate to match your energy output. That's one of the cockblockers that can prevent you from creating really, really great evidence that you know what you're doing as a coach and that you have confidence in. Another cockblocker to your success in overcoming imposter syndrome is looking to your clients for validation instead of feedback. This is a huge issue in the coaching industry where a lot of coaches are just glorified people pleasers. And if this is you and you're listening and you feel called out, I'm calling you out with so much love right now. But let me tell you this, you cannot rely on your clients for validation and for good feelings. You have to rely on them for hardcore, candid feedback, nothing more, nothing less. So there's a big difference between validation and feedback. Validation is like, oh, I want my clients to like me as a person. I want them to feel like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to them. I want them to feel like I am doing such a good job. You basically want them to pat you on the head and say, good coach, you did a good job. And the reality is they're not there for that. That's not their job. That's your job to pat yourself on the back or on the head, wherever you prefer, and say, I'm doing a good job. And that is only something that you can give to yourself. Now, what your clients are able to give you and what you should seek from them is feedback, real feedback that can help you improve your delivery and help you improve your overall experience you provide for your clients. So that's a huge distinction I want you to write down and remember. Look to your clients for feedback, not validation. And another big cockblocker, and this is the final cockblocker that will keep you from overcoming imposter syndrome, is that information addiction again. So let me tell you one other thing that will kind of shake up your world a little bit. The best coach doesn't get the client. The best coach at selling gets the client. And this is something that might ruffle your feathers a little bit, and you might have a little flare up of like, that's so not right. The world shouldn't be like that. And I agree with you. I believe that the most qualified, the most caring, the most loving people should be the most abundant. That's totally true. But at the end of the day, the world we live in right now is, marketing is a whole entire vertical in business for a reason. It's important for you to get out there and to advertise yourself to potential clients and put yourself out there as the number one solution for someone's problem. If you don't do that, someone else will. So my parting advice for you is, instead of being addicted to information and education, become addicted to action and making the offer. Because the truth is, if you completely and truly care about your potential clients, your future clients, and your existing clients, you will make the offer. But if you are willing to sit back and trick yourself into believing that you're not ready and that you'll never be ready and that you're not good enough to help people, guess what? You're right. But if you believe in yourself and you say, I am ready and I deserve this and I'm ready to help other people and I can help other people, guess what? You're right. The truth is, we are right no matter what we believe. And it's your job and your duty as a coach to believe the most empowering and helpful and robust things about your abilities and what you're able to give to other people on this earth. So that is my thought on imposter syndrome. This is a quicker podcast episode today, but I wanted to get it out there because this is such a beautiful and big topic that we do need to cover. We do need to talk about, and I'm grateful that you guys have brought this up so many times through Instagram and through all the other channels that you contact me through. So hopefully this episode was helpful for you and you were able to get a couple nuggets to write down and to learn from. And if there's any other questions you guys have, you know where to find me. Hit me up on Instagram, and remember, get yourself out there, make the offer, because people out there are waiting on you to speak up, raise your hand, and tell them that you can help them. And I believe in you. So I'll see you next Friday on the next episode of Payday with Rayray. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did find it super valuable, you just want to share it with the world, make sure you screenshot, post, and tag me on Instagram so I can stalk your profile and we can connect more. And to get notified on the next episode here on Payday, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes so you never miss a beat. Get out there, secure the bag, and I will see you next Payday.